Esperanza Resources is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange with the ticker EPZ. Esperanza Resources is a rapidly emerging company committed to the development of its precious metals projects.
Good afternoon. As the introduction said, I'm with Esperanza Resources. My name is Greg Smith. I'm the President and Chief Executive Officer of the company. Thank you for viewing this presentation today. I'm going to break this presentation into three parts. I'm going to start with a brief introduction to the company generally. Then I'm going to discuss our flagship Esperanza Gold project. And then finally, I'm going to discuss what I think is a fairly transformative transaction we announced a few weeks ago with Pan American Silver. So with that, I'll get started. Before I jump in, please note I will be making forward-looking statements during this presentation. Future results may not reflect the statements that I make today, so please use caution. So Esperanza Resources is, as the introduction said, a rapidly emerging company. We are focused on the development of our 100% owned Esperanza Gold project in Morelos, Mexico. I think we've got a very strong team and a strong treasury to execute on that. We've got today over $35 million in cash, and we have additional marketable securities. And our long-term objective for the company is to build a multi-mine precious metals producer. And the transaction I mentioned, and we'll discuss a little later in the presentation, is our first step in achieving that goal. Just a little about the team. Myself, I'm relatively new to the company. I was previously the CFO of Minefinders. That's the last time I attended this event in Zurich a few years ago. Last year at this time, we had closed the sale of Minefinders to Pan American Silver. And after that, I joined Esperanza Resources as the President and Chief Executive Officer. At that time, we brought in a number of other individuals from Minefinders and from some other groups, raised some capital, and have focused since then on advancing the Esperanza Gold project from development into production. So I think we've got a great team, a very strong board of directors, and are well positioned to move this project forward. So the Esperanza Gold project, it's located about a 2-hour drive south of Mexico City in Morelos State. Excuse me, it's a gold oxide deposit contemplated as an open pit heap leach operation capable of producing around 100,000 ounces of gold per year with a meaningful silver byproduct. There's an updated preliminary economic assessment on the project that I'll discuss in just a few moments. Project has got great infrastructure, good access, and is in a great mining jurisdiction, being Mexico. Again, a lot to like about this project. This type of asset is a low capex, low sustaining capex project with low operating costs as well, fairly technically simple. Mexico's a pro-mining jurisdiction. This project is located near major highway, near population centers, so you don't need a camp. It's got access to grid power and enjoys a very low strip ratio, quick timeline to production. So a lot to like about the Esperanza Gold project. This is a Google Maps overview of the project, and as you can see, it's a very brownfields area. The project area had a landfill previously operating on it that you can see on the bottom of the photo here. You can see the pit outline, and the eventual mining infrastructure would go just to the north of that pit. The southwest extension that's highlighted, that's the most near-term opportunity for resource expansion and expansion of the mine life. You can also see on this photo that the area isn't an area of some archaeological significance. There's a red line that cuts the photo almost in half here. Everything to the side opposite of the mine infrastructure is related to the archaeological zone of Xochicalco. Because of the archaeological significance to the area, the company engaged the Federal Ministry of Archaeology and History. They did a full review, and so we have a permit from them to construct and operate the mine from an archaeological perspective, subject to respecting this archaeological zone. I did mention that the project had a preliminary economic assessment. This was dated September 2011. Again, contemplates about 100,000 ounces of production a year, $500 cash cost with an initial capex of about $114 million. This was based on the September 2010 resource, and since that time we have updated that, and I'll address that in just a minute here. So based on that PEA, if you were to look at the value considerations for the project based on those metrics, you can see that even at a $1,250 an ounce gold, the after-tax NPV at a 5% discount rate is about $165 million. That would compare to our market cap today of about $65 million, and with an enterprise value of about $30 million. So we certainly see a lot of runway for value accretion in this company as we execute on developing this project. And of course, as gold prices move up, this value opportunity becomes even more compelling. I mentioned that we had updated the resource. So in September 2012, we issued the new resource. It had a meaningful increase in both gold and silver, leaving us with about 1.5 million ounces of gold in M&I and another 16 million ounces of silver in M&I as well. The increase in the silver is related to the inclusion of a silver-rich zone that had been excluded from the PEA. So this is new in the updated resource. The project has a feasibility, or we're conducting a feasibility on this project right now. And one of the things we're looking at is moving from a company-owned fleet that was contemplated in the PEA to a contracted fleet. And what that'll do is save us a significant amount of capital in constructing this project. You know, as you can see by this graph, the fleet alone with the support equipment would reduce the capex by about $45 million. We're also looking at reducing the size of the crusher that was contemplated in the PEA, or potentially eliminating it altogether. That'll also save a meaningful amount of capital, and then staging the construction of the heap leach facility. So if you were to back out those assets from the $114 million in the PEA, add in some working cap, you end up with a capex of about $65 million. Now, I will point out that we are doing a feasibility study. That capex is under revision, and I think ultimately it's going to increase probably to around $80 million. But our view is that the construction of a mine capable of producing 100,000 ounces of gold a year for $80 million is a very attractive value opportunity as well. So we're very excited to get this project into production. I mentioned we had joined in May. Since that time, we did the resource update. We've prepared permit applications, submitted the application. In October, we announced the conclusion of a surface rights agreement with the local community. We're in the process of completing a feasibility study now. And based on our current timeline, we would hope to have the permits in place by the end of this year, with all the associated caveats that permitting is somewhat out of our control, but that's our current plan. Release the results of the feasibility study during the second quarter of this year, and ideally get into a scenario where we can commence construction early next year with production by 2015. So I know I kind of raced through that, but I want to talk about this transaction with Pan American Silver that we announced in February. This meaningfully changes the profile of the company, brings in a number of assets, some new capital, some new board members, and really sets the stage for the Esperanza of tomorrow, which, as I mentioned, is our plan is to create a multi-mine precious metals producer. So this is really sets the stage for that. So this is an overview of the transaction structure. Effectively, we acquired from Pan American Silver the La Bolsa, Pico Machai, and Calcatreo projects in exchange for shares in the company. We also did a concurrent private placement with Pan American Silver for $35 million. And then we negotiated a $50 million standby credit facility, which is accessible at the option of Esperanza. And so where that leaves us on a pro forma basis is a company with 4 gold assets, all development stage assets, our current royalty portfolio, our current interest in Global Minerals, about $70 million in cash pro forma, and access to this $15 million standby credit facility. So we're fully funded to put our first project into production, and we've got a very attractive growth profile. You can see here that the pro forma company, or New Esperanza, has a substantial mineral endowment. In the M&I category, we have almost 3 million ounces of gold and another 28 million ounces of silver. And then in the inferred category, we have an additional 1 million ounces of gold and another 8 million ounces of silver. And this is across a very geographically diversified asset base with projects in Mexico, Peru, and Argentina. Just looking at the investment thesis here, the La Bolsa project in particular is a fully permitted, fully engineered project. I'm very familiar with this asset because it was a Minefinders asset prior to Pan American acquiring the company. With that asset in place and our ability to commence construction on it in the very near term, that gives us near-term production in Mexico, substantial growth profile with the Esperanza gold project coming after La Bolsa, and it could lead us to being a mid-tier gold producer with over 150,000 ounces of annual production by 2016. We like these low capex open pit types of projects, and collectively these projects will allow us to focus on cash flow and ultimately financial returns. We got a strong balance sheet, a very supportive major shareholder in Pan American Silver, and then of course the diversified asset base across the Americas. This again highlights the investment thesis here. This basically graphs the sub 2 million ounce open pit heap leach producing and development projects in Mexico. The Esperanza ones are the ones noted with the E. They are competitive in terms of grade and and contained ounces with respect to the Esperanza gold project. And what we have found is that these assets in the market tend to get a premium valuation. So as we execute on both the La Bolsa and Esperanza gold project, again, we see very, very substantial potential for value increase in this company as a result. This graph globally illustrates again the investment thesis, and I mentioned the premium valuation that these assets receive. With the Esperanza project and the La Bolsa project both in production, that puts us at a scale of annual production against market cap that would see a substantial increase in our market cap compared to where it is today. And the market's changed a lot in the last couple of days. These market caps are a little bit out of date, but it doesn't really change the thesis overall. These are all Latin American producers that have all or a portion of their production coming from open pit and primarily heap leach operations. Esperanza and La Bolsa collectively, from a cost perspective, would be at the low end of the operating cost spectrum. Again, very attractive, especially when you're looking at the volatile gold and silver prices lately. And even if you look at it from a all-in cash cost or break-even analysis, these assets will enjoy substantial margins even at significantly lower gold and silver prices. So again, very attractive from an economic perspective, very attractive from a risk perspective with respect to the gold price. A little bit about the projects. The La Bolsa project is probably what is of the most near-term interest to us. This is a project that had been in Minefinders' portfolio for a number of years. Minefinders advanced it right through a construction decision, and in fact, the company was going to put it into construction right around the time of the acquisition of Minefinders by Pan American Silver. So very advanced project. It's fully engineered, fully permitted, effectively ready to go into construction. And as a result of this transaction, we'll be fully funded to do so. So very excited to bring La Bolsa into our portfolio. Very good strategic fit. Again, it's an open pit heap leach project located in northern Sonora, Mexico. The initial capex, according to the pre-feasibility study, is about $31 million, and then it would have a 6-year mine life with annual production of about 40,000 ounces and cash costs of just over $500. That might have changed a little bit since then. We're updating our understanding now, but again, this project is a very near-term development project. Pico Machai, very similar to La Bolsa in terms of size. This is located in Huancavelica province, Peru. It's again contemplated as an open pit heap leach project. We still need to do some work on this project to advance it to a preliminary economic assessment stage. But again, we like it because of the infrastructure, the low capex, low sustaining capex, heap leach nature of this project. So, once we close the transaction, acquire these projects, we'll start looking at it in a little more detail to come up with a development timeline for Pico Machai. Calcatreo is a project in Argentina. It's a very attractive project, higher grade, open pit, great infrastructure, great location, great geologic and exploration upside, access to people, access to water. A lot to like about this project. Right now, we see it as a longer-term option for the company. It is in Argentina, and we've got enough assets in Mexico to focus on in the near term. But over the longer term, Calcatreo is something we would look at in the future to potentially increase production and put another mine into operation. Pan American Silver, very well-known company, best in class, major silver producer, great technical experience, a lot of mine building experience. We think they're going to be an excellent partner for Esperanza as we start advancing these projects through construction into production. So once this transaction is complete, our pro forma capital structure will look like this: about 150 million shares outstanding, with Pan American being the major shareholder at about 48%. Sprott and Wexford will also remain major shareholders in the company. These market capitalization and enterprise value numbers are actually quite a bit out of date based on the recent changes in the share prices. Today, we're probably at about $60 million market cap, so pro forma market cap would be about 120, with a total enterprise value of probably around $60 million. So just to conclude, I think Esperanza is in a very attractive spot in the gold space today, particularly given the recent challenges in the market. We are fully funded to put our first mine into production with a very strong balance sheet. We've got near-term production in a mining-friendly jurisdiction, exploration upside at multiple assets, a strong core shareholder. I consider exceptional board and management, and as we complete this transaction and start to deliver, we'll have a much greater enhanced capital markets profile, and we've got a great mineral endowment with 3 million ounces of gold in M&I, another 29 million ounces of silver. So as Esperanza executes on construction and moving these projects into production, again, I think there's a significant opportunity for re-rate potential and shareholder value creation. With that, I'll conclude. Please feel free to contact me at any time if you have any additional questions. Thank you.